Endocannabinoid system is very important for organism because cannabinoid receptors are one of the most spread receptors in the human body, and that is why we can explain why it works with so many diseases, almost with all diseases. Relax, eat, sleep, forget, protect. These are the main actions of endocannabinoids in the body. And if we look on cannabis, so up to now are known 1,424 compounds. What I collected this publication during 49 years, and 145 from them are cannabinoid compounds. Some of them are, of course, artifacts.
The effect is due to the interaction with our body. In our body contains an endocannabinoid system that gets receptors, gets other ligands, other components that are also lipid nature that are interacting with our endocannabinoid system. And that's the reason why the cannabinoids, and particularly THC, produce many effects in our body. And many of these effects, as we know, have therapeutic potential. There was already some evidence, and there are many groups working on this, of the neuroprotective role of cannabinoids. So THC is well known to be able to protect neurons, for instance, or astrocytes from different insults. So we have this double or dual role of cannabinoids. They can kill cancer cells, but they can protect normal cells.
The analogy that I use for the endocannabinoid system is a mobile that you hang above a child's bed, where all the pieces will hang down in equilibrium and in a balanced state. I don't think that the endocannabinoid system is a good name for it because it confuses it with the systems that it regulates. It's really the regulator of regulators, and it regulates all these systems. The oxidation system, cardiovascular, with once again a push-pull-like effect. The endocannabinoids are there to officiate the balance. Pharmaceutical drugs work at the level of symptoms, not systems. This is what's different about cannabis. It'll work at the level of the system. That's why its efficacy range is so broad, because it's attempting to balance out the system, whether it's endocrine, hormonal, or nervous. It's always trying to balance out the system.
So you make endocannabinoids out of omega-3s and out of omega-6s. The difference between those two is that omega-6s work in the sugar-burning mode, whereas the omega-3s turn on the fat-burning mode. So omega-3s, you still are dealing with inflammation. Bottom line, though, some of them are endocannabinoids, and what the endocannabinoids do is they turn on protective prostamides, which are a new class, basically, of chemicals that are similar to prostaglandins, but they turn, typically, the chemical structure is different, but they, in many cases, are anti-inflammatory. Cannabis in general is anti-inflammatory. How come sometimes it looks like cannabis is supporting a cancer? Well, if the cancer is using the electron transport system and CB1 activity is facilitating that in low doses, like getting high, then you're going to actually promote that cancer. You need high doses of cannabis, and you need to turn on the CB2 receptor, because that's the one that turns on the fat burning, and when you have virgin cancer cells, they can't biochemically shift. They wind up making too many free radicals and they die. Illnesses are all metabolic. The endocannabinoid system controls everything, everywhere. CB2 is fat burning, CB1 is sugar burning.
Because this endocannabinoid system is extremely complex, we now call it, there's a new name for it, and we call it the endocannabinoidome. And this explains or takes into account all of the targets we know, all of the receptors. We now know that we have over 100 endocannabinoids in our body, that there's way more than just 2 receptors, that the receptors are present not only on cells but also inside of the cell. And all of this complexity can be, we just need to keep in mind that it's all, the more we study, the more complexity we see. But even with all of this complexity, the plants seem to have it all figured out, because the sum of all of the plant cannabinoids, terpenes, and all of the 1,000+ molecules that cannabis sativa actually has kind of plays in very nicely with the complexity of our endocannabinoid system. And cannabinoids seem to be this primary SOS signaling molecule that tells our body to return back to its homeostasis, back to its core biochemical balance.